The galaxy was not ruled by empires, nor guided by councils, nor balanced by treaties of peace. It was held in the iron grip of one truth: the strong devour the weak. And none were stronger than the Zirith, the galactic predators. They came from the black void between the stars, colossal warforms of flesh and machine, with minds sharpened by eons of conquest. They did not negotiate, they did not enslave for labor, they did not assimilate cultures. They consumed. Entire civilizations vanished into their jaws, their histories reduced to ash, their fleets stripped for bone and steel. To resist them was to vanish, to bow was to be devoured last. World after world fell silent. The predators carved fear into the hearts of billions, until fear itself became a currency, traded, hoarded, worshipped. No one believed they could be stopped. No one dared imagine such a thing. Until whispers spread through the broken remnants of the galaxy. Whispers of a species unclaimed. A species not yet known to the great star charts. They called themselves humanity. A backwater species born on a blue world, isolated in a spiral arm far from the centers of galactic power. They had no ancient fleets, no great empire, no legacy of cosmic conquest. By every measure, they should have been nothing. Yet when the predators reached out to feed, they found something they had never known before. Something that did not run. Something that did not bow. Something that looked back at the galaxy's deadliest hunters. And bared its teeth. The void between stars carried stories long before it carried light. In every port city floating above shattered worlds, in every outlaw den along forgotten hyperspace routes, the same tale began to circle. At first, it was dismissed as rumor, just another desperate myth to comfort the broken. But rumors spread like fire when they carried hope. The story began with a system on the galactic rim, a mining colony already marked for extinction. The Zirith had come in force, descending with bioships like screaming leviathans. No one expected resistance. The colony's distress call had been sent not in hope of salvation, but as a final cry before silence. Except silence never came. Instead, a fleet arrived, small, by comparison. Ungainly vessels of steel and fire, their hulls not grown from living flesh like the Zirithas, but forged in furnaces, built by hands that refused to yield to nature itself. They bore no galactic insignias, no banners of ancient empires. Only a simple mark burned into their hulls: Earth Fleet Command. The battle that followed should have lasted minutes. By every known measure, the predators should have overwhelmed the defenders. Yet the opposite happened. The first reports described how the human ships did not retreat when the Zirith charged. They advanced. When the predators' biolances carved across the void, the humans did not scatter in fear. They endured, taking blows that should have torn them apart, their armor blackened and scarred but unbroken. And then, when the predators came close to feast upon the wreckage, human guns roared. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't sophisticated. But it was brutal. Shells tore through flesh-grown hulls, missiles slammed with thunderous detonations, railguns spat fire that punched holes clean through leviathans that had never known true damage. The void filled with screams, not human, but predator. The colony survived. And the galaxy noticed. In the Council of 12, those few remaining civilizations who had managed to cling to survival through submission and desperate treaties, an emergency convocation was called. The hall was carved from stone that predated the rise of stars, its vaulted ceiling etched with the names of thousands of lost worlds. Ambassadors and envoys gathered in fearful silence as the reports were read aloud. A predator fleet destroyed. Casualties, catastrophic, for the predators. Unknown species designation, human. Murmurs rose, each voice tight with disbelief. Some claimed it was fabrication, propaganda from rebels too cowardly to face extinction. Others argued it was impossible. No one defeated the Zirith. No one. Until a voice from the shadows cut through. They are not impossible. They are inevitable. It was Vale of the Draken, a race whose homeworld had been among the first to fall. Her people were scattered, broken, yet her gaze was steady. You misunderstand. These humans are not another empire to rise and fall. They are something else. The predators thought nothing could kill them. But humans do not fight like the rest of us. And what are they, then? Demanded the arbiter of the 12. Vale's lips tightened. Hunters. They are hunters who have just discovered a greater prey. The chamber fell into uneasy silence. For the first time in centuries, there was a ripple in the balance of terror. Meanwhile, far from councils and chambers, aboard the flagship HMS Resolute, Admiral Marcus Kane stood at the viewport, staring at the wreckage of what had been the Predator fleet. The battlefield was still drifting, a graveyard of burning bioships, their tendrils twitching lifelessly in the void. His own ships floated scarred and battered, hulls scorched, engines leaking, but alive. Alive. That word meant something to him. Kane was not a man of peace. Earth had not bred him for diplomacy. He had fought in wars before humanity ever left its cradle, wars against itself, wars for survival. He had seen cities burn and oceans boil. When humanity finally broke free of its atmosphere and cast its gaze to the stars, it had not come as explorers naive to the cost of life. It had come hardened, scarred, and ready. Status of the fleet? Kane asked, his voice low. 7 destroyers crippled, 3 cruisers down to emergency power, sir, reported Commander Reyes, his second in command. But we held. The colony lives. Kane's jaw tightened as he watched the drifting carcass of a predator leviathan. They'll be back. Predators always return to feed. And us, sir? Reyes asked. Kane's eyes narrowed, cold as the void. Then we'll remind them why humanity survived its own wars. We don't just fight to live. We fight so they die. News of humanity spread not as whispers now, but as storms. On worlds hiding under predator tribute, rebels raised their heads. Could it be true? Could there be a species willing to stand, willing to kill what no one else dared fight? For the first time in centuries, fear shifted. No longer was it one-sided. The predators felt it too. The Zereth High Swarm convened, their vast consciousness joined in a hive mind of thought and hunger. They analyzed the humans not as prey, but as anomaly. Their conclusion chilled even them: this species did not recognize predators. They only recognized enemies. And enemies, to humanity, were meant to be destroyed. As fleets prepared, as rumors spread, as councils debated, one truth settled over the galaxy like the first crack of dawn after endless night. The predators had ruled unchallenged for eons. But now, for the first time, the hunt had turned. The predators did not delay. When the Zereth were challenged, they did not negotiate. They descended with fury. Across the void, hive swarms gathered, an armada larger than any single species had seen in living memory. A tide of living warships, each one a fusion of flesh, bone, and void-forged chitin, swarmed toward the rim. Their roars echoed across hyperspace corridors like storms rolling through eternity. This was not vengeance. This was instinct. Predators did not allow rivals. And now, in their mind, humanity was a rival. On board the HMS Resolute, alarms flared crimson as reports streamed in. "Admiral, we've intercepted swarm movement vectors," Reyes announced, her face pale under the cold lights of the command bridge. "They're not sending a raiding fleet. This is full mobilization." Marcus Kane studied the projections, his eyes narrowing at the dense red clusters blooming across the star map. "How many?" "Estimates, 300, maybe more. Biocarriers, leviathans, drone swarms." Reyes swallowed. "Sir, that's an extermination force." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. No human fleet had ever faced such numbers. By all rational measures, they were outmatched, outnumbered, outgunned. But Kane did not flinch. Instead, he reached forward and dragged a line across the map, directly into the heart of the incoming swarm. "Signal the fleet," Kane ordered. "We're not running." The bridge went silent. Not out of doubt, but out of the heavy, electric knowledge that history was about to pivot on this moment. "We'll meet them head-on." The system chosen was Carrion 7, a binary star system at the edge of Predator territory. A graveyard of asteroids floated in its orbit, remnants of planets shattered by ancient wars. It would serve as battlefield, cover, and, if Kane had his way, a trap. The humans arrived first, their fleet small by comparison, 35 ships, scarred from past battles, patched with makeshift repairs, engines burning hot. Against the incoming swarm, it was a defiance painted in steel. Kane stood at the viewport as the first shadows of the Zirith fleet bled into the system. It was as if night itself had arrived, colossal silhouettes blocking starlight, tendrils writhing, maws yawning open to release tides of smaller predators. Their numbers darkened the void. For centuries, every species had trembled at such a sight. But humanity's response was different. The human fleet roared to life. Engines flared, guns powered, rail cannons spun with lethal charge. Reyes whispered under her breath, "God help us all." Kane's voice cut through like steel. "No. God help them." The clash erupted like the birth of a star. The predators surged forward, swarming with overwhelming speed. Biolances spat virulent plasma, tearing through the void in blinding arcs. Their drone swarms poured out like locusts, thousands of smaller forms shrieking toward human ships. And the humans answered. The first volley came from the Resolute herself, railgun rounds accelerated to hypersonic velocity. They struck the lead Leviathan, punching through its carapace in thunderous succession. The beast screamed, its voice reverberating across the void, and split apart in a shower of gore and chitin. The human fleet opened fire in unison. Cannons roared, missiles streaked across blackness, nuclear detonations flared with the brightness of false suns. The void became a storm of light and death. Yet the predators pressed closer. A swarm of biodrones crashed against the destroyer Havoc, tearing into its hull like piranhas. Metal screamed, atmosphere vented in a burst of frost, and the ship vanished in a blossoming explosion. The predators shrieked triumph. But humans did not scatter. They retaliated with brutal precision. 2 cruisers swung in, targeting the same predator swarm with overlapping fields of fire. The drones were shredded, burning into nothing. The destroyer was gone, but its death had bought time, and humanity made the predators bleed for every inch. Hours dragged into what felt like lifetimes. The battle churned across the system, asteroids splitting apart under the sheer ferocity of the clash. Predator leviathans died screaming, torn apart by railgun salvos and nuclear fire. Human ships were gutted in turn, each loss a wound felt across the entire fleet. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew fought exhaustion and fear as the predator swarm thickened. Multiple leviathans closing on our position. Reyes shouted. "Hold formation." Kane barked. His voice was iron. "They want us to break. We don't." The leviathans closed in, massive enough to dwarf the Resolute itself. Their maws split open, revealing pulsating cores of bioplasma ready to discharge. Kane clenched his fist. "Bring the coil guns online. Target the cores. Fire when ready." The guns thundered, streaks of incandescent metal tearing into the Leviathan's throat. The first core ruptured, igniting the beast from the inside. It exploded, shockwaves rippling across the field. The second beast lunged, plasma charging, only to be intercepted by a human missile that rammed itself directly into its maw. Nuclear fire consumed it whole. The bridge erupted with cheers, but Kane did not. His eyes stayed fixed on the swarm still advancing. "They're testing us," he muttered. They want to see if we break before they commit the full force. Reyes glanced at him. And if we don't? Kane's lips curled into something between a snarl and a smile. Then they'll learn the cost of underestimating humanity. Elsewhere in the galaxy, as the battle dragged on, the Council of 12 watched the live feeds smuggled out by desperate informants. Entire chambers fell silent as the impossible unfolded before their eyes. The predators, the eternal apex, were bleeding. Dying. Their invincible fleets torn apart by a species that should not have mattered. Vale of the Draken whispered, voice trembling, they fight like no other. Not with fear. Not with survival alone. The Arbiter asked, almost in awe, then what drives them? Vale's eyes darkened. Defiance. They will not accept prey or predator. They will burn the galaxy before they kneel. By the time the predator swarm finally broke off, retreating with half their numbers in ruin, the human fleet was a graveyard of its own. Out of 35 ships, only 17 remained operational. Fires burned, oxygen leaked, bodies floated in the dark. And yet, humanity still stood. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Kane exhaled slowly, exhaustion etched deep into his face. Status? Losses are heavy, Reyes admitted, her voice cracking. But sir, we made them run. Kane's gaze drifted to the void where predator wreckage still smoldered. They'll be back. Stronger. Smarter. He turned, his voice dropping to a growl that carried across the bridge. Good. Let them come. Humanity doesn't run. Far away, in the hive mind of the Zirith, unease festered. For the first time in their long, merciless reign, the predators had met prey that could wound them. Prey that could kill them. And deep within that hive, a thought formed that had never before existed. Fear. The galaxy trembled. For the first time in countless ages, the predators had not simply devoured. They had been wounded. Word spread faster than the speed of light, carried in encrypted whispers, in the defiant songs of rebels, in the prayers of the desperate. Humanity had fought the Zirith, and humanity had won. But the predators were not yet broken. In the black void beyond the spiral arms, the high swarm seethed. They did not know surrender. To them, pain was not defeat but fuel. Their wounds became rage, their rage became hunger, and their hunger became resolve. They would descend with everything. Every leviathan, every swarm, every weapon bred in their ancient forges of flesh. The humans would be annihilated, not for survival, but for vengeance. The galaxy braced for the end. On Earth, deep beneath the Atlantic in the Global Defense Command, the leaders of humanity convened. Holograms flickered with live data, swarm signatures stretching across sectors, converging on human space like a tidal wave of death. Estimates? President Hale demanded, her voice raw from sleepless nights. Thousands of ships, replied Admiral Marcus Kane, his projection towering in the chamber. Every leviathan the predators can field. They mean to erase us, body and memory. And can we stop them? Hale pressed. Kane's eyes burned with a grim fire. Not by standing still. He pointed at the map. They expect us to wait. To cower behind our colonies until they crush us piece by piece. But we won't wait. We'll strike first. We'll carry the fight to the swarm's heart. If they want extinction, then let us teach them fear of their own end. The chamber fell silent. What Kane proposed was madness, a species that had only just begun to scrape its way into the galactic stage now vowing to march into the maw of the galaxy's oldest predators. But it was not madness. It was humanity. And humanity had never survived by bowing. The fleet that departed from Sol was smaller than the swarm awaiting them, but it carried something no predator hive could match: ingenuity, defiance, and a will sharpened by endless struggle. 70 ships in total, battlecruisers, destroyers, carriers, and the flagship Resolute. Their hulls bore scars from past wars, patched with steel plates and painted with the names of cities that had risen from ashes. Within them, crews strapped into harnesses, weapons primed, hearts pounding with something more than fear. They were not fighting for dominance. They were fighting for survival. For home. For everything. And that made them unstoppable. The confrontation came at the edge of the galactic core. A place of swirling nebulae and shattered worlds, once home to civilizations long erased by the Predator's hunger. It would now become the crucible of history. The Zereth swarm awaited. A living storm of black and crimson, stretching from horizon to horizon. At its center loomed the prime Leviathan, a monstrosity the size of a moon, its body layered in armor grown over millennia, its mind the core of the hive. To kill it was unthinkable. And yet that was Kane's plan. "Transmit to all ships," Kane ordered, his voice steady on the Resolute's bridge. "We break through the swarm. We cut out the heart. Kill the prime Leviathan, and the hive falls." The order rippled across the fleet. Fear surged, yes, but so did resolve. Then the Predators moved. The swarm descended like a black tide, blotting out stars, screeching in frequencies that made bones ache. Biolances flared, drones surged, tendrils writhed. Humanity answered with fire. Railguns lit the void. Missile salvos streaked like falling stars. Nuclear detonations turned night into day. The first clash shattered dozens of ships on both sides, the void filling with wreckage and fire. But the humans did not break. Forward. Kane roared. Through them. Straight to the prime. The fleet obeyed. What followed was chaos sculpted into war. Destroyers rammed swarms head-on, detonating reactors to carve corridors through the Predator mass. Carriers unleashed drone wings that dove into the enemy, their AI programmed with one directive: kill. Human gunners fired until their arms bled, crews working in smoke and fire, refusing to stop even as their ships came apart around them. The Resolute herself became the spearhead, carving into the swarm with relentless fire. Leviathans lunged at her, their maws glowing with plasma, but Kane countered each with merciless precision. One Leviathan fell, then another, its corpse spinning into the abyss. Yet the prime loomed ahead, untouched, vast and terrible. "Admiral, we're losing too many ships." Reyes shouted, her voice raw. "We can't hold this." Kane's gaze fixed on the prime, his jaw clenched like steel. "We don't need to hold. We just need one shot." The fleet broke through, what remained of it a battered spear plunging into the shadow of the prime Leviathan. Its eyes, vast oceans of crimson, opened, fixing upon the intruders. A psychic scream tore through the void, shaking every mind, every soul. Crew members bled from their ears, some collapsing under the weight of alien rage. But the humans pressed on. "Target its core." Kane barked. "All batteries, fire." The fleet unleashed everything: rail rounds, missiles, nuclear warheads, each impact tearing chunks of flesh and chitin. The prime roared, its tendrils thrashing, swarms vomiting from its body. Human ships died by the dozen, crushed, devoured, erased in bursts of fire. Still they fired. The prime reeled, wounds opening like craters, yet it endured. Its plasma core swelled, preparing to unleash a single blast that would obliterate the Resolute and all who remained. Kane made his choice. "Reyes," he said quietly. "Prepare the drive." Her eyes widened. "Sir, you can't mean." "I do. Humanity's future isn't bought with caution. It's bought with sacrifice." The crew fell silent, understanding dawning like fire in their hearts. "Signal the fleet," Kane commanded. "Fall back. Leave the prime to us." "Admiral," Reyes began, but her voice broke. Kane's eyes softened, just for a moment. "Tell Earth, we were never prey. The Resolute surged forward alone, engines burning brighter than ever, tearing through swarms as if possessed. The prime Leviathan loomed, its maw opening wide, plasma blazing. Kane stood tall at the viewport, unflinching. "Drive to overload," he ordered. "All power to the core." The ship shuddered, reactors screaming, the very hull tearing apart from the energy building within. The crew stood at their stations, not as victims, but as warriors. The Resolute struck the prime head-on. And in the instant before the collision, Kane whispered a single word. "Die." The detonation ripped the void apart. The Resolute's core overloaded, unleashing an explosion brighter than any star, a storm of energy that tore through the prime Leviathan from within. Its scream shattered across the cosmos as its body split, burning, collapsing into itself. With the prime's death, the hive mind faltered. The swarm spasmed, disoriented, collapsing into chaos. The predators broke. For the first time in the galaxy's memory, the hunters became the hunted. When the fires cleared, only fragments of the human fleet remained. But they lived. And more importantly, the predators did not. Word spread like wildfire. Across enslaved worlds, chains broke. Across hidden colonies, hope ignited. The reign of terror had ended, not by diplomacy, not by submission, but by defiance. Humanity had entered the galaxy, not as prey, not as another empire to be consumed, but as the first to stand against the predators and win. In the Council of 12, silence reigned as the news was confirmed. Veil of the Draken rose, her voice steady but trembling with awe. "It is done. The predators are broken. Humanity has achieved what none dared dream." The Arbiter whispered, almost reverently, "What does that make them, then? Savior? Conqueror?" Veil's eyes glimmered. "No. It makes them what the predators never understood. Not prey. Not predator. Something greater." Her voice echoed through the chamber, through the galaxy itself. "It makes them human.